to the difficult life demands that come upon us in order to get to the next place. One of those, and I've been doing a little kind of work with this even this week because of a thing I have to do later in the week, a leadership thing about difficult conversations. And I've been, thinking about it and reviewing it a little bit, going back into the research, getting reminded of how absolutely important it is and how absolutely important it the results are in seeing how if we don't have difficult conversations, we will not have the results in our life that we want because that's part of it. There's no smooth path in a relationship from here to intimacy that has no conflict, that has no getting triggered, that has no, differing wants and differing needs that clash. There's just not a smooth path. We're humans. Okay. But here's the difference. And this is what I just want you to join me on this, guys. Come on, stand up and kind of take a pledge to yourself and to God. And the trees outside. No, don't do that. You don't want to worship trees, but you know what I mean. Get serious about this. This is the pledge. Life gets better in part as we increase our skills. Life gets better as we increase our skills. Why do people avoid difficult conversations? Well, obviously, there's pain involved, there's hurt. People are going to react sometimes. You got to deal with a lot of stuff. But I would submit to you that by and large, most people avoid them not because they don't want to resolve a problem, but because of a lack of skills. If we know how to do something difficult, we'll enter right into it and do it. I was just back in Little Rock where I had my surgery, and I was staying there with a surgeon friend of mine who's a cardiovascular heart surgeon, does all those really complicated techniques and drawing the blood out of the body and lowering the body temperature till they're frozen so you can work on stuff without blood, and then fixing whatever, putting the blood back in and warming them back up to life. And, then what's for lunch, right? Okay, to me, I'm not jumping into that conversation with an open chest and a bloody heart. I don't want to talk to that heart. Okay. You know why? Because it wouldn't be helpful. Oh, it would be helpful if I could do that bypass. Because it wouldn't be interesting. Oh, it's extremely interesting and engaging. The reason is I don't know what I'm doing. And so I'm talking to my buddy, and he was explaining what he had done that day. He had a 9-hour surgery. Somebody's valve blew up in 9 hours. And he's talking about one of the difficulties sometimes is you just can't see, and you've got to feel your way through the blood, and he's talking about, having done thousands and thousands of these, when his phone rings, he doesn't avoid going to the hospital. He doesn't avoid going to the OR. Why? Because he has the skills to pull off something difficult. Now, here's the thing. You get into relationships or you get into negotiations in difficult situations or whatever, you get into conflict or have to go to your kid's school and, work it out with the administration in a disciplinary action or whatever it is, your adult child, whatever it is. Be the heart surgeon. How are you going to get there? Well, desire is not enough. It's important. Care is not enough. It's important. Skills. And that's why, a lot of, so many companies spend so much time and effort in leadership development, for example, developing their people at high levels to have very, very difficult negotiations and conversations, but it's skills building. All right, so I wanted to mention that from the outset, and we can talk about a few of those skills even as the week goes on. I don't want to, yak at you the whole time. I want to get some calls, but But I want to start with this, that what happens in a difficult, what we call difficult conversations, they've been called everything under the moon. The Harvard group that did a lot of great work on this called some crucial conversations. And I love what they said about this, that when we define a difficult conversation, somebody you got to confront or somebody you got to work something out with, or there's a conflict or there's, conflicting needs, whatever. The things that make a conversation difficult are basically a couple of things, two or three things. One is that it really matters. Okay. Whatever you're talking about, for the person or the people involved, the stakes are high. Now, that could be material stakes, it could be, whatever. You want to move, a spouse, you want to move, I don't want to move, you want to do this, or the stakes could be protecting somebody's heart or their feelings about themselves. But the stakes are high. Number two, the emotions are strong. So stakes are high means it really matters. There's consequences to what we decide here or whether or not we resolve this conflict. But there's also emotions that are high. And when you get into woundedness and anger and hurt and all of that, when emotions are high, and then you throw in the third factor is the opinions or perspectives are different. So we got different perspectives clashing with nitroglycerin of high emotions. And what we're talking about matters so much that we're going to fight for our perspective, right? So you put those three together and you got a difficult conversation. Now, what happens is generally people will walk into that space and that pool of explosive, materials is sitting there and it creates anxiety, right? Especially if we don't have the skills. And what we'll do is, what do we do when we're anxious, when we're scared? What do we do? Fight, flight, or freeze, right? And what we might do is fight. We go in and try to overpower the person and get them to see our perspective and debate and talk them into it. And here's why this is true. And can't you see that? And we're trying to, in a sense, it may not be loud and angry, but we're using power to persuade somebody and get them to see it our way. Okay? That's the fight. Or when they come at us with their way, we fight, we get defensive, and we immediately push back. Well, that's because of you. No, what you don't see is, no, that's not true. And we fight, and we push against somebody's perspective. It doesn't work. Okay? Flight. Sometimes we flight. What does that mean? Well, we move away, we avoid it. We back off. We don't say it all. Okay? And the third one is freeze. We're just paralyzed, not much happens. But here's what we know about skills. My surgeon buddy, Fred, he doesn't get scared when he goes in the operating room. He doesn't get scared. You know what he gets? Focused. All of his attention is present. And I've actually gone into open heart surgery with him and seen this, and the focus and the attention and the being in the moment. There's not a lot of fear, but there's focus. And that ability comes from knowing that you have the skills to not fear it, not fight it, not freeze, but to move towards it. So I'm going to talk about just one of the skills today. One of the skills. Basically, in a difficult conversation, the problem that we are having in talking about things is really rarely about the message that we have to deliver or what we have to say to somebody. It's primarily about, and this is the most important thing to begin with, the degree of psychological safety that we are able to create for that person in that space to be able to hear the message that we're trying to convey. And so the very first skill that I want you to think about, so I want you to think about sitting back and getting out of persuasion mode, push mode, conflict mode, all of that, and get into thinking of ways, how can I make this space, this conversation, psychologically safe for the other person? You think about it. You got somebody, in a burning house, right? And the fireman goes up to the window, second story window, says, come on. It's just a little jump. Just jump into my bucket here. Jump into my arms. You know, what do? They have to encourage them, or the person can't make that jump. And see, psychological safety makes it safe for us to enter into the space. And we want a space in the middle, in between the two of us, where we're going to get to, we talk about this later, but we can share the meanings of our side of it. What does this mean to me? What's important to me? What am I feeling? All of that. And it's a no-fly zone. But instead, what we do is we invite people in that space, and then we fight, we persuade, and we invalidate and all that. So just start with the next one of these you're in, or somebody you got to go talk to. Think about, how can I make it safe for them?